Wham! Talk 1600. You're catching the drift. Conservative talk. Intelligent conversations on local, state, and national issues with Gary Wellings, chief editor of the Current newspaper and Current Online. Join in the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your host, Gary Wellings.
Good Saturday afternoon, and this is not Gary Wellings.
Gary, you're looking different.
yeah, I got a haircut.
Yeah, I'll say.
So, this is Ed Bonderenka sitting in for Gary Wellings, who's on not a vacation,
a mission
to Korea. It's a news assignment. He's gathering information there as we speak, gathering information about the tension in South Carolina, yeah.
Wow, is he meeting with Kim Jong-un?
Yes.
Yeah. I can just see the two of those. You know, Gary could save the world. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah. Wow, what a show that would make.
That would be a good
Gary
show.
saved the world.
Yeah.
Yes. So, as you may have guessed, sitting in is the lovely Linda.
Aren't you guys sick of me yet?
No.
I'm on like every show today.
No. This is part of that thing you were talking about on your show, which is the continuing
It
Saturday
is.
morning show, or Saturday afternoon show, for that matter.
It's kind of fun.
It starts out with the gun guys, and then continues on through Dick, and then you guys.
Yeah.
This American Life, which, I mean,
Yep.
I listen the whole day.
And then Ed. Yeah, I know. It's just great.
And then, of course,
Other
Ed
Ed.
Hoffman caps it all off. And then, of course, we go into the music shows, which, we just leave that on around the house all evening.
And you need it. You just need you need that at the end of the day to just kind of get all this political swamp water washed off,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's take care of a little business here first. We want to talk about one of our sponsors, Infinity Gym. And, I got to back up one point here. We have to talk about the Daily Drift. This is the Drift Radio Show. And what you need to do is you need to find out the information you need at thedailydrift.com to get the news you need to know.
That's right.
Yeah, I got that real good.
That's right. You're
time.
good.
I knew right when to come
You've
in
got
on
this
that.
business stuff down. This is great.
So back to Infinity Gym. We want to tell you real quick about this 14th annual Halloween Haunted Maze and Open Gym, Saturday, October 28th, between 5 and 7 p.m. And there's going to be half of all proceeds will be donated to 5-year-old Dylan Martin. He's an Infinity preschool student who's undergoing treatments for cancer. And right now, Lord, we ask you that you move in little Dylan's life and his health, Lord, and that you would bring healing from cancer, Lord, to those and all people who need deliverance from this disease, Lord. And we thank you for the hope you give us. And back to the commercial. So,
I feel most gyms are haunted. That's why I stay away from them.
I hear the word workout, and I get enough work when I'm at work.
I think I got something else to do. I think my phone's going off.
So that's it. I got to wash my hair.
Yeah.
So that's Infinity Gymnastics Academy. That's 810-229-4966. That's in Brighton at 12420 East Grand River. You can look for this at infinitygymnastics.com. And the costume contest starts at 5:30 there. It's $5 for all children. You might want to check it out. You get free refreshments and snacks provided. So, that being said, today we have a guest calling in, Jim Curtis. And Jim is a retired naval flying officer, career flying officer for the United States Navy. And he used to be involved with submarine hunting, and then he left there to do research work. And he's retired from that. Now he's a starving author. And Jim has written a number of books and novella, and I think we're going to have Jim come on and talk about that. Jim, you there?
Yes, I am, Ed. Thank you and Linda for inviting me on the show today.
That's great. It's good to have
Welcome.
you. Now, I've read Jim's blog for a number of years. I've lost track, and it's Old NFO is the name of the blog, and we've cross-connected with a number of people. And a couple years ago, Sherry and I went to D.C., and that's when Jim actually lived in D.C., and we met up with him and had dinner with him. And he's a really amazing individual. He's done a lot. His blog involves shooting, politics, humor, conservative notions. I mean, I think you people would like it, given our audience. You'd really enjoy reading his blog and even some of his books. The first book you wrote was The Gray Man, right, Jim?
That is correct. The quick and dirty on that, it's cowboys and drug smugglers.
That's good.
Perfect.
Tell us a little more.
Well, it was started because I was traveling about 200 days a year for the government worldwide. And I don't sleep on airplanes, being an ex-aviator. And I couldn't afford the bar bills and the hotels, so I started writing. And did some short stories, and some friends of mine became published authors. Larry Correa, Peter Grant, Mike Capari, a number of others, Marco Cluse. And that kind of introduced me to writing something other than a blog. So I put the first book out as a series of short stories. After about 50 rejections, including one that said even if I self-published it would never sell. And that was, okay, challenge accepted. And I've sold a few thousand of them. And that has, as a friend of mine said, turned into a trilogy, which is now working on book 5.
Yeah. How do you call it? A quintology?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's really a series about law enforcement in South Texas, Marines, the cartels, and things that take place on the border. And I tried to write semi-current fiction. But the bigger thing for me was to make sure that all the guns in the books are correct and their use is correct. That was probably one of the most frustrating things for me as a reader, is that many authors do not understand the weapons they put in their books.
Now you have quite the network of people that fact check you on this stuff, right? I mean, we know some of the people that are your beta readers, and they'll bring in little updates on, well, you might want to use this word or that term or this organization. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. And a number of them are also long-range shooters. Kind of a funny story. In book 2, there is one particular shot that takes place down in Mexico. And that was literally a 2-week argument amongst 3 of us as to what the correct bullet drop was. And finally, after sending all of the specifications, the lat long of the shot, the depression angles, all those bits and pieces, I finally get a response back, well, I got within 2 inches, so I guess that's close enough.
Well, I remember a few years ago, now you used to live in Virginia when you didn't live out your suitcase, right, or out the fuselage of a plane, right?
Yep.
And so you got out of the swamp, and now you're in North Texas. And I remember a couple years ago when you were writing about driving across Route 66 just to stay off the interstates and just to do a bit of Americana. Linda, you did that with Aaron, didn't you?
We've done a little bit. We haven't done the whole thing. We've talked about what a great time that would be to start in Chicago and go all the way out to L.A. through the whole thing, but we have not. That's a dream.
I think you were house hunting at the time, right, Jim?
Yes.
And Jim had written about it in his blog, and he wrote about this fish camp in northern Louisiana, I believe it was, on the Texarkana border. And he wrote about this fish camp where basically you go there, to eat fish, right? It's not just where the fish camp, but so.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and so my mom had retired and moved to Louisiana herself near Shreveport. And I mentioned this story to Jim in a comment about this fish camp that when I went to visit her in the late 80s with my kids, we were talking, and she says, I want to take you out to dinner at the Pelican Lodge tonight. Well, that sounds really, really nice, So we started off on this back road out to Texas, and we saw this side road with a sign that said Pelican Lodge. Well, let's take a look at this Pelican Lodge. And we drove into, I think, the set for The Swamp Creature. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And finally we see this rundown, ramshackle set of buildings, the Pelican Lodge.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I thought, I am not eating there tonight. I do not want to die. And we tried to beg off of going to the Pelican Lodge, and finally we realized we have to go through with this, Mom insists. And went there that night, and it's one of the most fantastic dining experiences I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Chinese lanterns hanging out, best fish,
cool.
best fries.
Mom always knows best.
Yeah. And I mentioned this to Jim, and Jim says, I've been there.
Wow.
And I thought, what? What's the odds of that? And it turns out, in communicating with Jim, Jim thinks his folks knew my mom. Which is like, bizarre.
That is
right?
crazy.
And I actually Googled Pelican Lodge, and it's still a going concern with a website.
Oh, yeah. Been there for probably 45 or 50 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, and it looks like it, too. I don't know what it looks like now, but yeah. So, yeah, Jim and I had that in concert. So, Jim, you started writing a novella about the exit of California from the Union. And before we talk about that a bit, I was hoping to find some audio. We like to play audio clips on here, and some audio from some newsworthy person talking about Cal exit. And I came across a blurb for another book on the Cal exit, a comic book. It's a left-wing comic book, and it's called Cal Exit Comic. Have you seen this at all?
I've seen it. I have not looked at it because I don't want to in any way impact any of my stories with what they're doing.
So it says here, well, you're going to hear a blurb anyhow. Or you can cover your ears. Cal Exit, a new series from Black Mass Studios, is set in a bleak near future in which the entire state of California is plunged into both a war with the federal government and a civil war within its own borders. Now, that sounds
depressing.
A little bit, pardon me?
It sounds depressing.
It does. So, Jim, tell us about your book.
Well, I originally wrote the novella to be part of a larger anthology talking about what happens if Cal Exit becomes real. As it turned out, they couldn't get the contractual obligations done. So I went ahead and just published my little novella. It's about 20,000 words, talking about what would happen in 2022, 2023 if Cal Exit became real for the military in San Diego. Because I know that area fairly well. I know the military out there and what they do. So put it out there. Got a pretty good reception. Got the usual expected one-star reviews from the left-wing loonies. And a couple of people expressed interest in expanding it. So I put out the word on my blog, and I said, hey, let's do an anthology of Cal Exit. So very, very loose world, if you will, in that Cal Exit takes place in 2022, and that they create their own currency called CalErs. That was basically the world, if you will, that I created. And I have 9 other authors that have written stories in that world. And that's what the anthology is. It'll be coming out next week.
Oh, that's soon. So there's a number of different takes. I'll tell you, frankly, when people talk about Cal Exit, I read a number of blogs, comment there, read other people's comments. And Cal Exit is talked about, even on Facebook, kind of like, can't wait for Cal Exit, can't wait till they're gone. And then on Always on Watch's blog, there was a liberal who said, oh, you couldn't afford to lose California's economy. They would take all of their money with them. And there was another reply that showed the true facts of how much they suck out of the federal budget, especially like with forest fires. So your take, basically it was like, okay, this would be a peaceful secession of California from the Union until, of course, somebody fires on Fort Sumter,
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about because I found it a real eye-opener to read your short story itself, and I'm looking forward to some of the other takes. But give us your take in a nutshell of what concerns there are.
Well, I think the biggest issue is if you extrapolate the current situation. We see what California is doing now with the higher taxation, the enfolding, if you will, of the illegal aliens, they're talking about making the entire state a sanctuary state. When you look at the conditions on the border, you look at the conditions